300 Spartans, Adelphae general, and so much more.
Plus, she's a mom and a woman with a real story.
Meet Allison.
Allison, welcome to Michelle's Body Shop. And thank you so much for supporting my channel. That means so much to me.
Of course. I felt very flattered that you're like, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I was like, oh, thank you.
Oh, heck yeah. As a fitness enthusiast and someone who's been in the costuming and con community for quite some time, I find what you guys do as Spartans to be amazing because you take those two loves and combine them. And what I really love about the Spartans is that you can't buy the coolest part of your costume. That only comes from discipline and extreme efforts.
Well, and also I have fairly decent genetics, which is annoying, but it is what it is. I feel like I should be a little mildly real here and just sort of kind of level with you. Yes. Obviously, great effort. A lot of work goes into it. The Spartans are for sure. Hell, I've been at con for how long? 17 years? 16? I think it'll be 17 years this coming con. And they have really helped kind of establish a precedent when it comes to combining cosplay and fitness. We don't consider ourselves a fitness group exclusively, and we don't consider ourselves a cosplay group exclusively. We do consider ourselves a blend of the two. And we're upfront with people when they join. We say, don't join if this is where you're starting your fitness journey, because we're not trainers. We don't claim to be. We trust that you're going to come in here and do what you need to do. So we're very fortunate in that we've had some really passionate people establish the group and then continue the group all these years. And I'm happy to hear that that's the reception that has been given. You've been in there, you've seen it. The Spartans are a great group of people.
Oh, yeah, totally. And, going into it, I didn't really know what to expect. What I discovered when communicating with everyone in the forums is that everyone was helpful and not judgmental. I felt received and encouraged by you and Victoria and the other Spartan hopefuls who I felt like were building with me and not competing with me.
Well, it's funny that you say that because you really are competing against each other from the beginning, but the goal, hopefully, right? And it seems based on what you've just explained to me as your experience, the takeaway that I really strive to have membership feel is it's not really about that end goal as a shield, right? What I would really love for you to take away from the experience as a Spartan is knowing that you have the capacity to do everything that you want to do, that you're in an environment and in a scenario where you are supported in your endeavors. We can help you as much as we can. Sparta is a great resource for, we have people who have at some point in their life held international powerlifting records. We have people in the group who have competed professionally bodybuilding or recreationally have done bodybuilding. We have a very, very small handful of people who actually do train people as their full-time job. It's all recreation, and it all sort of lends itself to a really beautiful pool of knowledge and intellect that hopefully when you're in it, you feel like you can contribute to, and then you can also take from. I like to say it is it's not really con, that it's more the journey to con that makes you Spartan than it is show up at con in Spartan condition. Right. So because the consistency and the dedication to do that is objectively harder.
Absolutely. And, I really did want to earn a shield for my 50th, but the original reason that I joined the Spartans was to connect with people who are truly living this muscle building lifestyle and to learn in some areas that I might be lacking.
And you're not the first person that's joined the group with that being a sort of an inclination at a goal and something that they were looking for. So
with that, I want to say that having a 300 Spartan general and someone who's achieved, this level of fitness that you have is kind of like having a celebrity interview on my channel.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thanks again for being willing. So as I understand it, the Adelphae segment of the Spartan group has not always existed. Is that right?
Yeah, brand new. Started in 2021, just out of sort of a very apparent need to kind of have caped women kind of let them have their own space because there has been a growing interest in that and having representation sort of on that front. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, well, so what brought you to the 300 Spartans?
So the first time I went to DragonCon was 2016. I went for a day. My now ex-husband was stationed about 3 hours away, and we were looking for something to do over Labor Day weekend. And we're like, "Oh, there's a big convention happening. We should go see what that is." We Ubered into the city for Sunday. I wore Lara Croft, and I was very excited about it because I was still fairly new in my fitness just journey, generally speaking, but had made a lot of progress from where I had been. And I felt like I looked like I did. And I was like, you know what? I am all about representing a badass female character who looks like a realistic version of how she would be, and not like a hyper feminized, hyper sexualized version of her. Like, this is not, in my opinion, a sexy costume. This is a woman who's getting stuff done, and she looks like she can get stuff done. So I was very excited to wear her to go to this. Plus, I love Halloween. I was like all day costume wearing. That sounds like fun. You've been to con many times. If you've never been to Dragon Con before and you walk in, reality goes away immediately. Like, oh my God, where the hell am I? What just happened? Like, did I step into this alternate universe? And you can't explain that to someone unless they have also felt it. So you kind of are in this like sort of suspended sense of like wonder. And we're walking around and having a great time immediately. And I saw a handful of Spartans, maybe 3 or 4 of them walking through. And at that time, I did not know that there was, because this was Sunday, right? So all the Spartan stuff had already been done, right? So there was a handful of Spartans that I saw outside of the context of the greater group. And I was like, oh shit, look at them. Holy crap, people take this seriously. This is a big deal to people. Interestingly, like the people that I saw, I'm like best friends with now. So it's like fun full circle. In the search after con for photos that everybody does, you go into all these groups and you try to look for pictures that people took of you. I learned that Sparta was a thing, like that they're an actual group that does all this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a big deal. And I bookmarked it, not as a group that I actually intended on ever being a part of at that time, just as a group that I was inspired by, right? Because I was still sort of burgeoning in on my own personal fitness journey. Fast forward 6-ish months, and I learned that I'm pregnant. Got on Father's Day, 2017, that I was pregnant. I love my daughter, and I would have her 10,000 times over again. And she's the best thing I've ever done on this planet. That was 2017. Daughter Violet came in February 2018. For most of that year after, I had a hard time with postpartum depression. I've never had an issue with being overweight. I've always been like really, really lean. I've always struggled with adding mass. It's been a journey to try to add lean muscle mass. And at the time I had gotten pregnant, I had spent probably 4 years building. And I was very proud of where I was. And then I got pregnant, and all of my exercise stopped, all of my eating stopped, everything stopped. I just, right? I was nauseous for most of it. It was a very healthy pregnancy, like as all things considered, very textbook, but I sweared, and I hated every second of it. I hated being because you're not in control of your body, and your body looks very different than how you're used to it. And then I had her, and she was a great baby. And again, everything was textbook, and everything was healthy, and everything was fine. But I was left with a version of myself that I didn't recognize, and I spent a really really long time waiting for myself to kind of bounce back to this version of myself that didn't exist anymore and wasn't going to, because that version wasn't a mom, right? And it took a long time for me to sort of accept that and be okay with that and find my strength in that. Um, so I needed a push, and I remembered the bookmarked Spartans in my brain in 2019, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to join them. I'm just going to join them and see what happens. And so I joined in 2019 and had a really great reception. I was one of a very small handful of women who were in the group. And at this time there was no Adelphae, right? Women who wanted to carry the shield had to meet the same standards as the men who wanted to carry a shield, and they had to be selected. So I joined right in the middle of that, and made it my goal, and like nose to the grindstone, got a trainer. This was an IFBB pro, retired IFBB pro. And I got on a really strict, for the first time in my life, I got on a diet plan that actually matched what I wanted to do. And I added a stupid amount of lean muscle mass. I have not had a bulk like that. At the start of my bulk to the end of my bulk, I added roughly 20 pounds. And I was eating probably 3,000 calories a day. It was nuts. It was it was awful. I hated it. But I added so much mass. I've never in my life I changed the way that I looked completely. And as my body and my like confidence and all that was growing, my marriage was sort of like dissolving a little bit, but that was okay. So in like the darkest phase of my life, right, I ended up leaving my ex-husband in 2020. COVID also happened, right? 2020. Shortly after learning that DragonCon was canceled, they still announced who made their shields, right? And I was in 2020, one of two women who officially earned their shield with the.
Wow. To have earned your shield before there was even a segment and standard for women separately, that's huge.
Yeah. Anyway, I joined the Spartans. I got a shield in 2020, earned my shield again in 2021, again as main group. And then at Con, they offered me a women's group. I named it Adelphae. I set up all the standards. I put all the goals in place. I ran it for myself by myself for the first year, brought Victoria in for the most recent one. It's been fun. It's been a lot of work, but it's been fun.
Sounds like you're saying that it was actually joining the 300 Spartans that brought you out of your postpartum depression.
Oh, it did 100%. 100%.
Awesome. I mean, so awesome. And then not just pull yourself out of it, but to soar way past it.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And it's funny because I was not an athletic person growing up. Like I was not as a kid. I didn't do sports. I was friends with people who did sports. I did like concert and marching band for middle school and high school, and then I continued marching band into college. Right, I was very much not in the athletic lane, and I had no inclination to be at all. Graduated college in December 2012. And started dating my now ex-husband. We started dating. He was in the middle of training for Ranger School. I don't know if you're familiar with military or anything like that, but I would spend my weekends with him. But like half of that time would be spent in a military gym. And I got really fucking tired of being the girlfriend that would go with him into the gym and just sit on the floor and watch him lift. And I could see all the other girlfriends doing the same exact thing. And all I could think of in my brain was like, I know exactly who came here and who didn't want to come here. In my brain at the time, I was like, I kind of don't want that to be our narrative. Like I kind of, when people see us, would like for them to wonder who brought who here. Credit where credit is due. The reason I lift is because of my ex-husband and all of his sort of military obligation forcing him to have to be there all the time. And I was like, hey, can you just show me? And so he did. Finding a lot of my own personal strength and ability and capacity and what I can do through lifting really changed a lot of my perception of myself. And when I had Violet and coming out of that, and again, postpartum hitting me really hard, I was glad that I had lifting and training, even pre-Spartan, because society and culture and social media and influencer sort of like world really wants for women to think that there's an expectation for them to go back to the way that they were before they had a baby, that they have to bounce back to a version of themselves that literally it doesn't exist anymore. Everything changes, and you have to find strength in the fact that you've just literally grown a human being. You grew a person, you created a person, you created life. I mean, you had help. You had like ingredients, right? But you made it and you brought them forth. You did that. And there's so much beautiful strength of self that you can find in that you then just attach to everything else that you did before and learned ahead of being a mom. And from there, you grow.
What a powerful story. No pun intended. Overcoming postpartum depression with lifting, just smashing through the concept that having a baby makes you a has-been, loving yourself and growing through changes in life. Now that's something we can all relate to. Make sure you subscribe to Michelle's Body Shop so that you can catch part 2 of Allison's story, where she will share some of her training tips and advice for anyone who's training to be a champion. See you next time on Michelle's Body Shop.